He thought he'd seen everything a fire could do, until the night the smoke spoke his name. When an abandoned house kept burning without reason, Firefighter Leo was sent to find out why. But what waited inside wasn't a blaze to fight, it was something that remembered him. And this time, the fire wasn't what he had to survive. Greetings, every shadow hides a story. Welcome. Under the Bed. It happened in late November, just outside a quiet Pennsylvania town. Cold rain fell through the night, and the fog was so thick it swallowed the sound of our sirens. I'd been a firefighter for 12 years. My partner, Tom, had been on the crew for almost as long. We'd seen every kind of blaze, warehouse fires, apartment gas leaks, car wrecks, but that night was different from the moment the call came in. At 2:47 a.m., dispatch reported a structure fire on Ash Street. The strange thing was, Ash Street had only one house left standing, a condemned property that had burned nearly a decade ago. It had no electricity, no residents, no reason to be on fire. Still, protocol said we had to respond. When we pulled up, the rain turned to mist around the glow of orange light. The roof of the old house was breathing smoke through cracks in the boards. It didn't roar like a normal blaze, it pulsed, like something alive underneath the surface. The street was dead silent, no neighbors watching, no dogs barking, no smell of fuel or chemicals. Just wet ash and the faint sound of wind moving through hollow windows. Tom muttered, "No way this thing should be burning." I agreed. We checked for power lines, gas leaks, nothing. The air was unnaturally cold. My breath fogged the inside of my mask before we even went in. As I adjusted my radio, a burst of static hit my ear, followed by a whisper. It was soft, stretched, like the air itself was speaking. I thought I heard my name, Leo. I froze for half a second. Tom asked if I said something. I didn't answer. Maybe it was interference from the tower. Maybe just my brain playing tricks in the noise. But the sound stuck to me, like it came from inside the mask instead of through it. We breached the front door. Inside, everything looked wrong. The fire didn't move like normal, it was slow, winding through the hallways like fog made of flame. The heat was uneven. One corner of the living room glowed red hot while the next felt cold enough to fog our visors. My boots stuck to the floor where melted tar and water mixed. We advanced through the main corridor, calling out the standard routine, "Fire department." "Anyone inside?" No reply, only the creaking of the house and the slow hiss of moisture evaporating off blackened walls. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The smoke was so thick it pressed down on our shoulders. My flashlight cut through layers of ash hanging in the air. Then, by the staircase, I saw movement. A shape, tall, still, half hidden in the smoke. I raised my light higher. For a moment I thought it was a person. The beam caught something like a face, pale and flickering, but the thermal scanner showed nothing. No body heat. Just cold. Tom said he didn't see anyone. I could have sworn the figure tilted its head. Then it vanished, melting back into the smoke. I felt my heart climb into my throat. "Thermal glitch," Tom said, but his voice wasn't steady. We pressed on toward the back room, where the heat spiked again. The air turned heavy, the sound of crackling wood muffled by the strange pulse beneath it. I heard it again, static in the radio, a breath in the earpiece, and then the voice. Clearer this time. "Leo." I spun around, expecting to see Tom behind me, but he was 10 feet away, checking a doorway. The voice came again, drawn out, layered like two people speaking through smoke. "Leo, come down." The words felt like pressure inside my skull, not sound. My knees went weak. I backed up until my tank hit the wall. "Tom, did you hear that?" I shouted. He turned, confused. He didn't hear a thing. Something brushed past me, cold air, though the fire around us burned hotter than any I'd felt. My helmet camera flickered for half a second. The smoke shifted, twisting into a narrow column, and in that column I saw two bright, hollow shapes like eyes staring right back at me. I don't remember dropping the hose. I just remember standing there, unable to move, staring at that thing that wasn't there. My heartbeat filled the mask, loud and desperate. The voice whispered again, this time right behind my ear, "I see you." Tom grabbed my shoulder, shouting something I didn't catch. The smoke collapsed around us, and the heat spiked, then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was lying outside on the pavement, mask off, coughing black water. The rest of the team had arrived. The house behind us still smoldered, but the flames were gone. The chief asked what happened. I couldn't speak. On my glove, I noticed a thin smear of soot shaped like a handprint, small, almost child-sized. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those eyes again, floating in the smoke, waiting. I didn't go back to the station for 3 days after that night. My head kept replaying the sound of that whisper, the shape in the smoke, the handprint on my glove. The report called it a low-intensity interior flare, and my chief marked it down as smoke hallucination due to oxygen depletion. But I knew what I saw. Or at least, what I felt. Tom tried to make light of it when we finally talked again. "You were out cold, Leo," he said. "You probably just took in too much smoke." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But the detail that kept haunting me wasn't the fainting, it was the eyes. The feeling of being seen. A week later, just before midnight, another call came in. Same street. Same house. The dispatcher's voice hesitated before reading the address, like she thought it was a mistake. Ash Street, structure fire, possible rekindle. When we arrived, I felt the air change before we even parked the truck. The ruins were soaked from days of rain, yet faint wisps of gray smoke curled up from the basement windows. The whole block smelled like wet stone and burnt plastic. My stomach twisted. "Basement fire," the chief said. "You and Tom check it out. Quick recon only." The basement door was warped and black, half hanging off its hinges. When we pried it open, the air that came out was cold, damp, and heavy, like a cellar that had been sealed for years. My flashlight beam fell across the stairs. They were slick with ash. I could hear the faint crackle of something still burning deeper inside. We descended slowly. The light from above faded behind us. I kept my gloved hand on the rail, though it felt soft, almost rubbery from the heat. When we reached the bottom, the smell changed, less smoke, more something metallic and sweet. It reminded me of blood, though I knew that made no sense. The fire was barely visible. It flickered in the far corner like a candle, feeding on nothing. The walls were damp stone, blackened with soot. My radio hissed, then popped in my ear again. I froze. "Tom," I said, "did you hear that?" He didn't answer. He was inspecting a pile of debris that looked like collapsed shelving. I took another step forward. The beam of my flashlight slid over something drawn on the wall, small circles, uneven lines, and the faint outline of stick figures. Childish drawings, half-burned but still visible through the soot. Crayons had melted into the concrete, dripping like blood. There had been a family here once. A couple and their daughter, if I remembered the report correctly. The girl had been 6. They died in the first fire 10 years ago. No one ever rebuilt. As I looked closer, I saw a new smear across the wall. Fresh soot, shaped like a small handprint, darker than the rest. "Tom?" I turned, but he wasn't behind me anymore. The air thickened. The faint candle flame began to move, as if pulled backward into the darkness. Then I heard it, breathing. Slow, rhythmic, from somewhere near the stairs. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Tom, answer me." Nothing. Just the low hum of my own tank and the whisper of settling ash. I swung the flashlight toward the sound. The beam caught a shape crouched beside the steps, small, pale, and motionless. I shouted, "Fire department. Identify yourself." The shape lifted its head. 2 eyes glowed faintly through the smoke. Then the light snapped out of my hand. Everything went black. I stumbled backward, my boots scraping concrete. The whisper came again, closer this time, right beside my ear. Leo. My name again, carried by something that wasn't wind. The radio erupted with static. Through the noise, I heard Tom's voice shouting my name, distant and distorted. I turned toward where I thought the stairs were, but the darkness had changed. The basement no longer felt like a single room, it felt endless, hollow, as if the walls had shifted. My foot caught on something. I fell hard onto the floor, the air knocked out of me. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Then I felt it, a cold touch on the back of my neck. It wasn't a draft. It was pressure, like fingers pressing lightly through my jacket. I screamed into the mask and scrambled upward. My glove brushed against something on the wall, a door handle. I yanked it open, light flooded in, and strong hands pulled me through. Tom dragged me up the stairs, shouting, "What the hell happened down there?" I ripped off my helmet, gasping. I could barely speak. There was someone down there. He looked at me, pale. I was gone 30 seconds, Leo. The door slammed shut on its own. I couldn't get it open. We stepped outside, and the air hit like ice. I collapsed on the curb, shaking. Tom pointed at my helmet. "You see that?" On the side of the visor was a single, perfect black handprint, small, like a child's. When the report was filed, the chief called it an equipment smudge. They sealed the basement the next morning. But that night, as I tried to scrub the soot off my gear, the radio on my table hissed for a split second. Through the static, a faint voice whispered again, soft, breathy, familiar. "Come back." 2 days after the second fire, I went back to the station. Nobody talked much about Ash Street. Tom avoided eye contact, and the chief told me to file a simple rekindle report and move on. But I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the basement, the handprint, the whisper, the eyes. I kept thinking maybe my helmet cam had caught something. I wasn't supposed to take the recording home, but I did. I waited until late at night, when my wife and son were asleep, then loaded the footage onto my laptop. The first minute was normal, smoke, movement, radio chatter. My breathing echoed inside the mask. Then I saw the part where the light flickered out. For a moment the screen went black. Then, in that darkness, something appeared. At first I thought it was a reflection, a blur shaped like a face. But as I paused and zoomed in, my stomach turned cold. The face was my own. The same helmet, the same gear, the same name tag. Only it wasn't me. It was older, burned, distorted, as if melted by years of heat. The eyes were open, and through the muffled sound of my own breathing came a voice. Not from the camera, but from the speakers themselves. "You were there." I froze. The timestamp on the video was off. It showed I'd been in that basement for over 20 minutes, even though Tom swore I was gone less than 2. The voice repeated, low and broken, "You were there." I shut the laptop and sat in silence. The walls of my living room felt too close. My wife came out half asleep, asking what I was doing. I lied and said it was just an equipment review. She frowned. She could see something was wrong. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning I went to the station early. Tom was already there, drinking coffee, looking like he hadn't slept either. I told him about the video. He didn't want to hear it. "Leo, don't show me that," he said. "Whatever's in your head, leave it there." He stood up and left without finishing his drink. Later that day, I watched the footage again, this time on the station monitor. The video glitched near the same moment as before, static, then a whisper through the audio feed. But now there was something else. Just before I blacked out, the smoke around me twisted into a narrow shape that mirrored my movements. When I leaned left, it leaned left. When I breathed, it pulsed. It was like the smoke was imitating me. I checked the time code again. 21 minutes. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. In the reflection on the glass of my mask, there was a second set of eyes behind me, wide, black, and steady. I took the tape to the chief's office. He played it once, frowned, and stopped halfway through. "It's distortion," he said flatly. "Condensation, maybe a double reflection. Nothing paranormal here." He ejected the drive and handed it back. "Drop it, Leo." But that night, I got a call from Tom. His voice was shaking. "I saw it," he said. "I tried to delete the copy from the archives. It wouldn't let me. The system froze. I heard it say your name again." I asked him what he meant. He hung up. Around 2 a.m., I woke to a faint alarm beeping from my gear closet. My old radio had switched on by itself. Through the static, I heard something breathing. Slow, calm, deliberate. Then my own voice came through the speaker, repeating a line from the tape, "You were there." I ripped the battery out and sat in the dark, shaking. The smell of burnt wood filled the air, though nothing in the house was burning. The next morning, Tom didn't show up for his shift. They said he called in sick. No one could reach him. I went back to the laptop. I couldn't help myself. I played the video one more time, frame by frame. The moment before I fall, when the whisper says my name, something new appeared. In the lower right corner, barely visible through the fog, I could see a shape in the smoke. It wasn't a person, but it stood upright, arms slightly out, head tilted, like it was watching me. And for a single frame, less than a second, it moved closer to the camera. The burnt version of my face faded away, replaced by something hollow, featureless, but familiar. I could almost see my reflection inside it, as if it had learned how to copy me. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding, and stared at my reflection in the black screen. For a moment, I wasn't sure if it was really me staring back. That night, I left my gear in the garage. I told my wife I'd take a break from night calls. She didn't ask why. I think she already saw it in my eyes. Still, as I tried to fall asleep, I could swear I heard the faint sound of breathing coming from the hallway, slow and steady, like someone else in the house was wearing my mask. It had been 2 weeks since the last call. 2 weeks of silence from Tom, and 2 weeks of nights where I couldn't tell if I was awake or still inside the smoke. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that burned version of myself staring back, lips moving, but no sound coming out. I tried to stay off duty. My wife begged me to take a break, said I looked sick. I told her it was just stress. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. The voice in the radio hadn't spoken again, but the silence felt heavier than the noise ever did. Then, on a foggy Wednesday night, the alarm went off at 1:12 a.m. I didn't even need to hear the address. Somehow I knew before dispatch confirmed it, Ash Street. The same property. The same house that should not have existed anymore. I arrived alone. The others were already out on another call across town. The chief told me to stand by until backup arrived. But when I got there, the house wasn't gone. It was standing again. Half burned, but whole enough to recognize. It looked like it had rebuilt itself out of its own ashes. I stepped out of the truck, rain soaking through my jacket. The yard was still blackened from the previous fires, yet the windows glowed faintly, as if there was light inside. I killed the siren and listened. The air had no wind, no rain sound, just a low hum, like the world was holding its breath. I radioed in, Unit 4 to 5 on scene. Confirming structure is partially intact. Static answered me. Then a voice broke through, soft and slow. "Leo." I froze. "Dispatch, repeat last." No response. The front door was open. The handle, once melted, was whole again. The same number on the door, 47. I stepped inside, flashlight raised. The floor was dry. No ash, no debris, no smell of fresh smoke. Just that heavy burnt scent that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. Every step echoed too long, like the house had swallowed sound. My beam caught the staircase, rebuilt but charred. I whispered, "Is anyone here?" My voice came back distorted, repeating itself from somewhere deeper in the house, "Here." Halfway through the hall, my radio hissed again. "You left me there." The words came clear this time, spoken in my own voice. My heart stopped for a beat. The memory hit me like a wave. 10 years ago, the night we lost David, my first partner. We'd been inside a burning apartment when the ceiling collapsed. I made it out. He didn't. The building's address? Ash Street. Back then, the lot was cleared. I never went back until now. The walls around me creaked. I turned the corner into what had been the living room. The floor glistened as if wet, reflecting my light. On the far wall, in soot, someone had written my name 3 times, one over the other. My knees went weak. I raised the flashlight and saw something standing in the smoke. The outline was human, wearing turnout gear just like mine. Helmet, oxygen tank, visor down. I stepped closer. It didn't move. I whispered, "David?" The figure tilted its head slowly. Then I heard my name again, not through the radio this time, but from inside the walls. The voice was everywhere, layered, distorted. "You left me there." The figure took one step forward. The air temperature dropped. The beam of my light flickered. The figure's visor caught it, and in that reflection, I saw my own face staring back from behind the glass. I stumbled backward, hitting the doorframe. The house began to groan as if alive, timbers shifting. Smoke poured from cracks in the ceiling, but it didn't rise, it fell, like fog sinking from above. My radio screamed static. I tore it off my shoulder. The voice came again, louder now, closer. "You were supposed to save me." I turned and ran for the exit, but the hallway had changed. The front door was gone. Only black walls stretched where it used to be. I spun in place, coughing as smoke closed in, swallowing the light. Then I saw it, the same handprint, small and black, sliding across the inside of my visor. Not from outside, but inside the mask. I ripped it off, gasping. The smoke twisted in front of me, shaping itself into something with my outline, arms reaching, face hollow. It stepped forward, and as it touched me, I felt everything go silent. The world dimmed to gray. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I was standing or falling. The smoke wrapped around me like a blanket, pulling me downward into the dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying outside on the front lawn. The house was gone, nothing but ashes and rain. My truck lights flashed through the mist, but there was no sound. My hands shook as I reached for my radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 405. The structure, it's gone again." Only static replied. Then a faint voice whispered through, the same tone as before, calm and almost peaceful. "Now you remember." I looked down at my gloves. One of them wasn't mine. It was older, cracked, with the initials DW burned into the wrist. David's gloves. The same ones he was wearing when he died 10 years ago. I dropped it and backed away. The ashes at my feet shifted slightly, as if something underneath them had exhaled. That was the last time I ever saw Ash Street. When I woke up, the world was pale gray. I was lying in a hospital bed, my clothes folded on a chair beside me, still smelling of ash. The doctor told me I'd been unconscious for almost 8 hours. They found me on Ash Street, lying 20 feet from the ruins. No burns, no smoke in my lungs, but my pulse had dropped so low they thought I was gone for a moment. The chief came later that morning. He looked older, tired. "You shouldn't have gone in alone," he said quietly. I didn't answer. I could tell he didn't want to talk about what I saw in there. He just wanted this file closed. "We'll mark it as structural collapse," he added, writing something on his clipboard. When he left, I noticed my gear bag beside the bed. My helmet rested on top, clean, polished. I hadn't touched it since that night. I hesitated, then flipped it over. Inside the rim, carved into the metal, were 3 letters, DW. The same initials that had been on the old glove. That afternoon, they released me. My wife drove me home in silence. The rain had stopped, but the sky stayed heavy and colorless. When we pulled into the driveway, she reached over and touched my hand. "You don't have to go back," she said. I nodded, meaning it this time. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was quiet, but I kept hearing faint clicks, the sound of radios turning on and off. I went into the garage, where my gear still hung on the wall. The air smelled faintly of smoke, though I hadn't been near a fire in days. My old helmet camera sat on the bench. I connected it to my laptop, hands shaking. I needed to know what really happened inside that house. The last recording had timestamps missing, but this one was complete. I pressed play. At first, everything was black. Then the image brightened. I saw myself walking through the rebuilt house, flashlight cutting through the haze. The radio hissed, the voice whispering my name. Then, suddenly, the camera tilted upward, pointing directly into the smoke. Shapes moved through it, slow and shifting, like faces half-formed and fading away. Then came a voice, calm, clear, almost human. "You came back." The image trembled. I saw the outline of another figure beside me, gear identical to mine, standing shoulder to shoulder. But his faceplate reflected flames that weren't there. My own voice answered on the recording, low and broken, "I'm sorry. I couldn't save you." The other voice, the one from the smoke, replied softly, "Now you did." The video ended there. No fire, no collapse, no scream. Just silence and the faint echo of my own breathing. The next morning, the fire department called. They said the city was finally clearing the lot on Ash Street. As they dug into the foundation, they found 2 burned helmets, one mine, one older, half melted. The second belonged to David. His remains had never been recovered 10 years ago. When they told me that, something inside me went still. The nightmares stopped that night. For the first time in weeks, I slept without hearing my name. A month later, I resigned from the department. I gave my equipment to the new recruits and packed the rest away in the attic. I thought that was the end of it. But sometimes, when the weather changes and the air outside turns dry, I still catch that faint smell of smoke. Not from any fire. Just from the past, drifting in quietly through the open window. One evening I went to the lake near the edge of town. The water was still, reflecting the orange glow of the sunset. I took David's old glove, the one with the initials burned into it, and dropped it into the water. It sank fast, leaving only a small ripple. As I turned to leave, I felt a single warm breath of air move past my ear, like someone exhaling softly behind me. No words, no whispers, just one final breath. I looked back. Nothing but calm water and fading light. When I got home, I placed my helmet on a shelf by the door. The inside of the visor caught the evening glow, and for a moment, I thought I saw a faint reflection, someone standing beside me, watching quietly, then fading away as the light dimmed. I never saw Ash Street again. But every time I hear a siren echo through town, I stop for a moment and listen, half expecting to hear my name carried in the distance, hidden inside the sound of the wind. Because now I understand what the smoke wanted. It didn't want revenge. It wanted to be remembered.